Hello everyone, today's video content is analysis of the real questions of the AZ-104 exam and explanation of relevant knowledge points. The following test questions are all from our question bank, and they were updated on November 9th, 2024. Exam overview. Exam skills. Exam preparation guides. Question 1. You have an Azure subscription that contains several virtual machines and a key vault named Vault 2 in the East US region. The virtual machines need to securely access Vault 2 while maintaining least privilege and minimal configuration changes. What should you configure in the NSG? The knowledge points of this question are: configuring NSG rules and using service tags. NSGs control what traffic can flow in and out of Azure resources like VMS. Service tags are shortcuts for groups of IP addresses used by Azure services, so you don't have to manually list each IP. This makes it easy to let resources connect securely to services without extra admin work. Let's analyze the options for this question. The correct answer is: service tags allow secure access to Azure services without specifying individual IPs, ideal for least privilege access to Vault 2. Only groups VMS doesn't grant specific service access. Unnecessary for NSG rules. Question 2. You have two virtual networks, VNet 3 and VNet 4, in different Azure regions. You need to ensure that traffic between these networks uses the Microsoft backbone network. What should you configure? The knowledge points of this question are: ExpressRoute and VNet peering. When you need virtual networks in different regions to talk to each other, using Microsoft's backbone network keeps things fast and secure. ExpressRoute provides a dedicated private connection, and VNet peering links networks directly. Both are great options for quick, reliable cross-region connections. Works within or between regions but doesn't ensure private backbone use. Less secure and efficient for cross-region connections. The correct answer is: provides a private, secure connection across regions, keeping traffic off the public internet. Only manages traffic flow, doesn't create secure cross-region connections. Question 3. You have an Azure storage account in the West Europe region and want to create a secondary copy in East US. Which replication option should you choose to minimize effort and maximize availability? The knowledge points of this question are: Azure Storage Replication and Redundancy. Azure Storage offers backup options like geo-redundant storage, which keeps a backup in another region. This way, if something goes wrong in one location, you still have a copy. It's an easy way to ensure your data is always available without extra setup. Only replicates within one region, not enough for cross-region backup. The correct answer is: GRS replicates data to a secondary region, ensuring high availability and disaster recovery. Adds read access capabilities but isn't necessary for simple replication. Provides redundancy within a region, not across regions. Question 4. You need to set up auto-scaling for a standard Azure App Service plan to scale out based on CPU usage. What scaling option should you choose? The knowledge points of this question are: auto-scaling configuration in app service. Azure's app service can automatically add more resources when demand goes up, like if CPU usage gets too high. It scales down when demand drops, so you're only using what you need. This helps keep costs down while ensuring your app always performs well. This option only increases resources for a single instance, not the number of instances, so it doesn't effectively handle large increases in demand. Like standard S2, this only increases resources for a single instance and doesn't add more instances when demand spikes. The correct answer is automatically scales out instances when CPU usage exceeds a threshold, meeting demand without manual intervention and ensuring optimal performance. Requires the administrator to manually add instances, which is inefficient and doesn't respond automatically to fluctuating demand. Question 5. You have a virtual machine in Azure that needs to connect to an on-premises server for latency monitoring. Which agent should be installed on the on-premises server to work with Azure Monitor's Connection Monitor? The knowledge points of this question are: monitoring network latency with Azure Monitor and Connection Monitor. Connection Monitor and Azure Monitor lets you see how fast data is moving between your Azure and on-premises resources. By using the Network Watcher agent, you get metrics on things like latency, which is helpful for troubleshooting any network issues. Mainly logs data, doesn't provide full network insights. General monitoring not focused on network metrics. The correct answer is required to track network performance metrics like latency and packet loss. Designed for Azure Arc, not for latency tracking. Question 6. You have a blob container in an Azure storage account and need to lock new data for 6 months to prevent deletion or modification. What feature should you configure? The knowledge points of this question are: blob storage access control and retention policies. You can set policies to control who can access or change your data in blob storage, and even lock data for a set time with a legal hold. This is great for meeting data regulations and making sure only the right people can touch your data. The correct answer is prevents data from being deleted or modified, meeting compliance needs. Controls access permissions but doesn't lock data. Controls storage costs, not data modification. Restricts IP-based access, not data retention. Question 7. You want an alert when a resource lock is removed from any resource within an Azure subscription. What should you configure in Azure Monitor? The knowledge points of this question are: configuring activity log alerts and action groups. Azure Monitor's activity log alerts keep you informed if something changes in your environment, like if a lock is removed. You can set these alerts to notify you via email or SMS so that you're on top of important changes. The correct answer is sets up an alert for specific events, like a resource lock being removed. Collects data but doesn't trigger alerts directly. Can't create alerts in Azure Monitor. Used for VM grouping, not alerts. Question 8. You need to restrict virtual machines in a subnet from accessing the Azure portal. What should you set the destination in the NSG rule? The knowledge points of this question are: NSG rule configuration and using service tags. With NSGS, You can block or allow traffic to certain Azure services, like the Azure portal, using service tags. This helps you control exactly what can connect to your resources in the network, enhancing security. Requires manual entry, which is less efficient. Would block too much, disrupting access to other services. The correct answer is enables easy restriction of Azure portal access without managing IPs. Can't specify Azure portal access. Question 9. When deploying a set of Windows Server VMS, you need them to start with NGINX installed. Which Azure feature should you use? The knowledge points of this question are automation of configurations using VM extensions. Azure's custom script extension lets you run scripts on VMS right after they're deployed, so you can automatically set them up with things like NGINX. It's perfect for keeping VM configurations consistent and saving setup time. Manages mobile devices, not VMS. Provides remote access, not VM configuration. The correct answer is allows automatic script execution on VMs post-deployment for setup tasks like NGINX installation. Manages code deployments, not server setup. Question 10. You have a storage account containing thousands of blobs. You need users to view only specific blobs based on tags. Which feature should you use? The knowledge points of this question are access control for Azure Blob Storage using SAS. Shared access signatures are tokens that give temporary, limited access to your storage. They're handy for securely sharing resources without giving full account access, allowing only specific actions and access for a set time. Manages access for the container, not specific blobs. The correct answer is grants limited access to specific blobs based on permissions and expiration. Controls VM access, not blob access. Broad permissions, not specific to SAS needs. Question 11. To rotate the access keys for an Azure storage account automatically, what should you configure? The knowledge points of this question are Key Vault integration and key rotation for storage accounts. Azure Key Vault makes it easy to securely store and automatically rotate storage account keys. This reduces the risks of manual key management, keeping your keys safe and compliant with security policies. Used for VM and workload backups, not for key storage or rotation. The correct answer is Azure Key Vault can securely store and automatically rotate access keys for an Azure storage account, ensuring security and reducing the need for manual key management. Controls data retention policies for blobs, not key management or rotation. Designed for backup data, not for managing or rotating access keys. Question 12. You need to enable SMB multi-channel for a file share on a new storage account. Which configuration minimizes costs? The knowledge points of this question are configuring storage performance and redundancy. Enabling SMB multi-channel on Azure file shares boosts performance by allowing multiple connections. Using locally redundant storage with standard performance keeps costs down while ensuring your data is backed up within the same region. Premium storage is more expensive and typically used for high-performance requirements, which isn't necessary for basic SMB multi-channel support. The correct answer is standard with locally redundant storage enables SMB multi-channel support at a lower cost compared to premium options, making it a cost-effective choice for file sharing without cross-region redundancy. This option adds both high cost and cross-region redundancy, which isn't needed for minimizing costs with SMB multi-channel. Zone redundant storage is more expensive and provides multi-zone redundancy, which isn't essential for enabling SMB multi-channel on a file share with cost efficiency. Question 13. You are deploying multiple web apps using an ARM template and want to minimize costs. Which shared resource should you deploy first? The knowledge points of this question are resource management and cost control in app service. Running multiple apps on the same app service plan allows them to share resources, reducing costs. This setup makes resource use more efficient and cuts down on unnecessary expenses while meeting app needs. Used for routing traffic across different regions or endpoints, but doesn't consolidate app hosting resources, so it doesn't reduce hosting costs. Primarily used for load balancing and web application firewall functions, it doesn't offer shared hosting resources for multiple web apps. The correct answer is a single app service plan allows multiple web apps to share the same resources, significantly reducing costs by avoiding the need for separate plans for each app. Deploying multiple plans would increase costs, as each app service plan incurs its own set of resource and cost requirements. Question 14. You need to assign the Help Desk Administrator role to a user in Azure AD. Where should you assign this role? The knowledge points of this question are role-based access control in Azure AD. In Azure AD, roles like Help Desk Administrator can be assigned to users to grant specific permissions. This keeps access limited to what users need, which is key for security and managing resources effectively. The correct answer is the Directory Roles section in Azure AD is where you can assign administrative roles like Help Desk Administrator to users, giving them specific permissions within Azure AD. This section is used for configuring general user preferences but doesn't allow for role assignments. This section is used to assign licenses to users for accessing various services and applications, not for managing administrative roles. Question 15. After deploying multiple VMs using an ARM template, you want them all to run Apache. Which extension should you use? The knowledge points of this question are automation of configurations with VM extensions. The custom script extension automates tasks on VMs during or after deployment, like installing Apache. This keeps configurations consistent, saves time, and simplifies setting up new VMs. Provides app monitoring, not server setup. The correct answer is automates installation of software across VMs right after deployment. Complex to use for simple setups like Apache. Not suited for initial software installation. Question 16. You need to configure a web app to be accessible via a custom domain. What record should you create first for domain verification? The knowledge points of this question are configuring custom domain bindings and DNS validation. Setting up a custom domain in Azure requires DNS verification, usually with a TXT record, to confirm domain ownership. This keeps the domain binding secure, ensuring only authorized owners can connect their domain to Azure. A CNAME record helps point your custom domain to the web app, but it doesn't verify ownership, so it can't be used as the first step. An A record connects your domain to an IP address, not for proving ownership. The correct answer is you need a TXT record with the domain verification ID to prove you own the domain. This is the first step to making sure your custom domain is linked to your web app securely. PTR records are only for reverse DNS lookups, which isn't related to setting up custom domain access for web apps. Question 17. Your web app needs to access a MySQL database on a VM connected to a virtual network. What should you configure for connectivity? The knowledge points of this question are: VNet integration for secure connectivity. VNet integration lets your web apps communicate with other resources in a virtual network, like a database. This keeps data within the private network, improving security by avoiding exposure to the public internet. The correct answer is connects the web app to VMs in the virtual network, enabling secure access to the MySQL database. Distributes traffic within VNet, not required for VNet integration. Provides web traffic load balancing, not direct VNet connection. Links VNets but doesn't directly connect web apps to databases. Question 18. You are implementing an availability set to ensure VM availability during maintenance. How many update domains should you configure? The knowledge points of this question are: availability set configuration for high availability. Availability sets in Azure ensure VMs remain accessible during maintenance by using multiple update domains. This way, updates are staggered, so only part of the VMs are updated at once, keeping the app online. Using only one update domain means all VMs would be updated simultaneously, causing downtime during maintenance. The correct answer is configuring two update domains ensures that during maintenance, only one set of VMs is updated at a time, keeping at least one VM available and maintaining high availability. 3. Update domains are more than necessary for this scenario, which can increase complexity without added benefit for basic availability needs. 5 update domains are generally excessive unless you have a large-scale deployment, adding unnecessary overhead. Question 19. To monitor traffic in Network Watcher, which resources should be created? The knowledge points of this question are: network traffic analysis using traffic analytics and log analytics. Traffic analytics in Azure lets you track network data to spot issues, security risks, or traffic bottlenecks. This visibility helps optimize network performance and improve security by giving you real-time insights into data flows. A storage account can store logs, and an action group sends alerts, but they don't provide data analysis or visualization. The correct answer is a log analytics workspace collects traffic data, and a workbook lets you visualize it, making them perfect for monitoring traffic in Network Watcher. Data collection rules help define what data to collect, but aren't specifically for traffic monitoring in Network Watcher. Sentinel is aimed at security monitoring, which is more than what's needed for simple traffic tracking. Question 20. You need to allow a group in Azure AD to upload files to a storage account with least privilege. Which roles should you assign? The knowledge points of this question are: role assignment for storage account access control. Assigning roles like storage blob data contributor gives users specific access, like uploading files, without over-permissioning. This keeps data secure by only giving users the permissions they need, following the least privilege principle. This gives broader access to the entire storage account, not limited to blob data, which exceeds the minimum necessary permissions. The correct answer is assigning storage blob data contributor and reader grants only the permissions needed for uploading and reading files, following the principle of least privilege. These roles provide too much control over the storage account, including management tasks, which violates least privilege. These roles grant broader access across resources, allowing more permissions than necessary for file uploads. If you have any questions about the AZ-104 exam, please leave a message in the comment area or contact us directly. Thank you everyone for watching. See you next time.